we got a guest today, so I probably won't be able to get into any articles today because we got a guest. We're going to be talking to him. Please welcome to the show, Jeff Epstein with Citizens Media TV, and we're talking today about MMT. And quick mention here, you might have noticed that during the preamble chat we were having, we were talking about music. That's because Jeff is a classically trained singer, and he's a damn good one at that. And some of you, here's a fun fact, some of you that listen to the podcast, you'll notice on the theme song, there's a high harmony on the Get Your News On With Ron theme song. That voice is Jeff's. And he's a real singer, so he makes me sound a lot better. And that was really fun. Jeff ripped the demo, and he made that harmony and sent it to me. And he's like, I'd love it if you use this. And I was like, well, that sounds freaking great. So I'd love to use it. So, Jeff, thanks for doing that. And
that was amazing.
On,
that was such a great little thing. I'll just briefly say that it was the first major thing that I've been into music-wise since Bernie Sanders. And for my first big music thing since Bernie Sanders to really mix, my kind of politics with music is a really cool thing. So thank you for taking it and going with it.
My pleasure, man. All right, so you are, I get, what's the right way to put it? Like an activist with MMT, or you're trying to kind of be an educator about these ideas? Like what's kind of the best summary?
Well, it fell into my lap because Bernie Sanders teaches us, this is why the world stinks, and these are the things we should have, and if we have them, this is why. And so I kept on asking the question, okay, well, that's great. So why don't we have it? 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 And then the answer fell into my lap, which was MMT. And so it's just another tool of trying to push the kinds of agenda that people like you and me want to do. That it's actually the final step in the tool in actually getting these things. So it's just sort of an extension of just activism, I think.
So what is MMT?
Well, I have an elevator pitch, and I'd love to share it with you. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. I came up with this with your inspiration. Modern money. I call it modern money. It's officially modern monetary theory, MMT. MMT is the study of how our economy actually functions. Modern money shows why the powerful always get what they want and why the people only get crumbs, nothing at all, or even less than that. Modern money shows exactly how we can actually get the programs that we need to survive. And it also shows that our government can easily give us these things tomorrow and could have given us these things decades ago. The powerful have always known modern money for war and tax breaks and everything that they want. They just do it. But when it comes to healthcare, education, forgiving student debt, and a job guarantee, suddenly they forget about modern money, MMT. Suddenly it's how you're going to pay for it, how you're going to pay for it, how you're going to pay for it, how you're going to pay for it. And the saying that I like to describe about this whole situation is MMT for the rich, rugged neoliberalism for the poor. So that's my elevator pitch.
All right. So let me, and feel free to correct me, but my understanding so far in talking with you and in some other things I read, we have a money system where our money is printed. It is essentially based on nothing. It's based on trust. That's actually what it's based off of. And the powerful, the most powerful among us, they dictate when and how that money gets printed. There is some oversight because otherwise it would make our currency completely worthless. But for the most part, when they want to print out money for war, they do it. When it comes to things that help the hoi polloi's lives, our lives, healthcare, education, et cetera, as you mentioned, all of a sudden they don't want to print it out. MMT, and again, I know it's way more complicated than this, but the kind of just cliff notes, MMT proposes we take those notions and we put it into the hands of the people. So we're printing out money for things like healthcare and education instead of unlimited bond money. Is that correct?
You are roughly correct with that whole thing. There are a couple of important details that are off, but yes, you're generally correct. Printed is sort of a discouraged kind of a term. It's more accurate to say created because printed implies physical, and physical is a really physical money. Dollar bills and coins are a very small part of it. Mostly it's electronic, like in bank accounts and so on, credit cards. But yes, generally that's correct. Based on faith is really not accurate. It is money. We use money because we will go to jail if we don't pay federal taxes. That's why we care about it. It's not
Certainly.
faith. It's fear of going to jail. That's a fundamental concept of any government. That the very first thing to implement your money is to have a penalty of going to jail. So you pay your people. The purpose of a government is to use the real resources at your disposal, coerce the people to use the real resources at your disposal to do what's beneficial to society. And money is what they give to the people to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that they use the United States dollar is because you'll go to jail if you don't pay federal taxes in the United States dollar. You have to use the dollar to pay your taxes. So if they didn't do that, it would turn into, you'd still have debts and things to pay, but eventually it would not be in the dollar anymore. You'd use other kinds of currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the reason I just said trust in air quotes was because that's what's printed on the dollar bills.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
that was all I was referencing to there. But
it's generally correct. It's generally correct. It's generally correct. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
And oversight. The other thing is oversight. There's really no, I wouldn't say oversight, because generally just people don't follow rules. People just do not follow rules. It doesn't matter how good those rules are, how many rules there are. Humans don't follow rules. But there is something that forces them to create money in a responsible fashion because it's out of their control. And the things that are out of their control are real resources. You can't change the amount of coal in the ground. You can't change how fast a gestation period for a horse or an animal. You can't change how fast you can educate a person to be some position. So what the oversight is not in human control. It's in the real resources that the country has at its disposal, because that cannot be changed by human beings, no matter how much money you throw at it. So, but generally, everything that you said is correct, that it's just an excuse. They want to have what they want. They don't want to give us what we need. And so they make some enormous kinds of excuses to make that happen. And the excuse is, to start to get into this, is that the federal government is just like you and me. That our conception of debt, our conception of borrowing, our conception of budget is exactly the same for me and you as it is for the federal government. And so they want us to feel the anxiety of, if we have healthcare, if we have free college, then that will create this debt, that will create this deficit, that will create this anxiety, basically making it impossible for us to have these things because of these mythical scare tactics, basically. Not even basically. The scaremongering, all these things give us the anxiety that if we ask for what we need to survive, then it's going to cause economic chaos. That's what most people believe. So that all comes from the government can create money. The government can create money. They can create it because they want to create it. They just literally write a number into a bill, the president signs it into law, and money's created. And it's no different than a child drawing it on a piece of paper, a bill on a piece of paper, or ticking up the numbers on a scoreboard. Money exists because they want it to exist. And that fundamental concept changes everything. It changes everything. So that means that the debt is nothing like me and you. So when I go to a bank and I get a $100 loan, I immediately owe them $100 plus interest. Right. And if I don't, they'll really be on me and do whatever it takes to get my money back. There is no comparison to the federal government. The federal government doesn't have a bank that they go to. They have a bank that they command. The Congress commands the Federal Reserve. But there's no bank above the Congress that they go to. And so they borrow $1 trillion from this mythical bank above the United States. And now that bank is going to take the United States to jail. I mean, there's nothing comparable to that situation. So I'm throwing out a lot there, but
yeah. No. But I see where you're going with this. And one thing I wanted to mention, it seems like these ideas are kind of just a summary of a lot of economic ideas that have been around for a long time. I mean, I remember, for instance, when I was in college and I was taking an economics class as a gen ed. And
sorry,
you okay, man?
Nope, I just pulled my headphones. My headphones pulled it. Go ahead.
When I was in an economics class, and I remember, when I was in college, I was very, very opposed to the Iraq War. I mean, I still am. I haven't changed, but I was really opposed to it then too. And I was talking about it and talking about how we're spending all this money on it. And I was told in class that, well, that's just a number. Don't worry about the debt. It seems like when it comes to endless war and when it comes to things that benefits, the elite among us, they're never really worried about the debt. That's a non-issue. But when it comes to things, again, that benefit us, as we've been mentioning, we get the how you're going to pay for that. So going on that, and we already got some viewer questions lined up, but I want to get like a foundation first, and then we're going to go into them. It seems like MMT is sort of proposing, using these notions to benefit people, which is a brilliant idea. My question is, strategically and structurally, from a power construct, how do you get there? I mean, how, as you've mentioned yourself, the Federal Reserve is benefiting the government. That's who they report to. That's who they serve, essentially. Some would argue they report to pretty much nobody, but we all know that the powerful, they're holding hands, right? So how would you take that construct and then all of a sudden have it report to the people? How strategically would you get there?
Well, for me, it's educating the people on how our economy actually works. Because these things are not what we should do. These things are actually what happens and has been happening for decades. It's just they use that knowledge as corrupt people for their benefit and against us. It's, modern money is just feelingless knowledge. It doesn't say what to do or not do. They choose to use it against us. But that doesn't mean that the rules couldn't be used for us. And so I believe that you need to educate the people on what the reality is. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing on policy, like Republican or progressive or centrist or anything. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing on policy, but there's a real problem disagreeing on the reality of how our economy works. And that's what we're arguing about. And if we can't get together on the reality of how the economy works, then our policies don't matter because we're never going to get there. But as far as the answer of how we do this is if we can become a team by empowering each other on the reality of how our economy works, then we can join together and kick the corrupt politicians out of office and replace them with people who care about us and will use the rules for us. It's not changing the rules. It's just using the current rules for us. But we must get the corrupt politicians out of office or all bets are off. And if the only way of getting corrupt politicians out of office is if we become a team. And we have to become a team to understand, I believe, that understanding what the rules of how the economy actually works and stop being tricked by these corrupt politicians when they turn to us and say, how are you going to pay for it and so on. That's how we can join as a team and start getting more Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's in and so on.
So basically what you're saying is if we have this rise of mass awareness, where people are saying, no, stop dangling this debt carrot over our heads. We're not falling for the bullshit anymore. We can print out the money tomorrow and have universal health care and have a Green New Deal and have free college. So we're going to elect the people that are willing to do that are willing to sign off on that. And once we get all of them elected, we're going to have a different country. Is that like of like a very soundbitey summary?
That's generally it. Yeah. But It's important to understand that giving us healthcare is not just giving us healthcare. It's not just stopping them from profiting off of us. Yes, they want to profit off of us, off of our sickness and suffering and death. They definitely do. But that's not the biggest thing. Giving us Medicare for all empowers us. And by definition, that means it takes power away from them. That means that we are not chained to our jobs anymore. We can start standing up to our bosses because we don't have to worry about our family losing our insurance. And even more than that, we can leave our jobs and start running for office because we can afford to run for office. That, in my opinion, is the biggest thing, because Medicare for all will empower the people. Immediately, as soon as we get Medicare for all, power shifts from them to us. And even more so with the federal job guarantee. Now with the federal job guarantee, we can talk to our bosses and say, you must treat me better, you must pay me better, or I'm going to get a job near me with good benefits and good pay, and that's close. That allows us to stand up to our bosses. That is what they're trying to avoid, not just they're holding healthcare from us or education from us. They're keeping themselves powerful, because the only way you can stay powerful is by keeping other people powerless.
Well said.
Get your news on with Ron. Did you want to
what's going on. We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? Getting our news on today.